Well, maybe I guess we can begin then. So thank you, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me in today's session. My name is Tim Choi. I'm responsible for products at a company called WatchDox. We're a secure enterprise file sharing and sync solution. We work with lots of agencies that are in organizations that need to share and collaborate on files. This is one big topic I'm going to focus a lot about. It's about files and sharing and Dropbox and mobile devices and iPads, and where are your files going and how do you make sure that that information is protected after you've sent it out, right? So please, let's I'd love to keep this interactive. Don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions. I don't like to just preach. So in the theme of talking about mobile collaboration and iPads and such, I'm actually presenting from my personal iPad right now. Right, so I actually don't carry a laptop. I now work completely on my own personal iPad that my wife bought for me, and to start it off, it's that sort of requisite mobile chart. The number of smartphones and tablet devices, as you can see here, between 2012 and 2013 have exploded in terms of growth. Right? How many of you guys have seen iPads within your organization or Android devices within your organization? Right? How many? I'm sure. What are the reasons? Why are people wanting it? Lightweight is cool. Productivity. These are interesting sort of reasons, right? These are end user needs that they want to be able to work on these new devices. And I'm sure many of you were at the keynote session that Dave talked about the new world that we live in today, right? And it's actually quite fascinating. I mean, I'm out of Silicon Valley, and just seeing the changes that have happened over the last couple of years around like iPads and cloud services is really affecting the way people work today, right? The requisite chart, the number of devices, the tablets, the smartphones that have come into the world. And this is an interesting stat. 41% of CEOs actually we surveyed use an iPad for work. We have one particular customer, private equity firm, and their CEO works completely on his iPad. He does not have a laptop computer at all. Right? Now, will that world completely change to 100% iPad? It remains to be seen. I'm not terribly convinced, but the fact remains. These smartphone devices, these iPad devices that may not be company issued, may be personal devices, are definitely something to take into consideration within this new world. And what's driving the CEO or many of our business users to want to use these sort of cool gadgets? How many of you are familiar with Maslow? Awesome. By the way, for those who are interested in terms of management, Maslow has a really great book called Maslow and Management. It talks about how do you motivate teams. I run my own team and actually use a lot of those principles myself, but that's besides today's topic. But I actually have, from a product perspective, a similar hierarchy of needs that I view why people want to use these cool gadgets. Right? There's the physiological, the safety, the love, belonging, esteem, self-actualization. All of these sort of productivity needs, being able to edit documents, annotate documents, get access to the files wherever you are. And this mobile nirvana we're calling, right? It's being able to work wherever you are. Right? VPN access was sort of the first entryway, right? Like, I can now VPN into work. I can work from home. I can unfortunately work even more, but that's besides the point. But now you can work on the road. You can work on the Caltrain. Sitting on a plane, right? So now it's actually allowing you to attain the mobile nirvana, as we can see here on this hierarchy of needs. But at the same time, and I believe this is the reason why we're all here today, It's about the files and what's in those files. Right? So Gartner did a survey, did an analysis, and found that 80% of corporate information is actually inside unstructured files. It's not just databases will be the 20%. The PDF, the PowerPoints, the spreadsheets that everyone creates. Think about how many files you're creating every day, how many files you're sharing every day, and then multiply that with your total organization. That's the number of information that's being created every instant, every day, every second. Right? So you can imagine the sheer amount of information that's being generated. 50% of business processes occur over files. Right? So this could be, how many within healthcare? Raise your hands. All right, so this could be, for example, a doctor sending out, requesting for additional assistance from an external specialist, for example. This could be, for example, billing information related to a patient. This could be, for example, well, probably not in this case. We deal a lot with financial services, but mergers and acquisitions that take place between companies. I'm not imagining they're merging and acquisitions of states, but that's, I don't think that's pretty applicable. But you can see here financial reports, contracts, audits, financial audits, corporate, what are your plans? Personal identifiable information, personal healthcare information. We do a lot of work with, for example, manufacturing, intellectual property. All of these are inside of your files that you are generating and sharing. And there was a gentleman, you talked about that tension between productivity and security. And this is sort of that tug of war, right, that's happening, right? On one hand, is what the users want, right? I as the user, I as the business user, I want to do work, I need to share information, I need to get files out, I need to do my work. On the other hand, it's us. It's the IT practitioners, the security practitioners. It's about, how do I protect that information? How do I adhere to the compliance requirements? How do I ensure that my agency, my organization does not end up in the news? I don't have a $1.2 million fine because someone's laptop got stolen and the OCC is after me now, right? So that's top of mind for us, and that's that tension between security control tracking and then mobile collaboration and sharing. Right? So how does this all sort of tie together in the real world? Right, so here's what I affectionately call the chain of pain. Starting from the very left, I have someone, my business user, that wants to share personal identifiable information with a partner. Sometimes this information is within SharePoint. Right? It could be within a file store. And I want to give access to this information, but I can't because, well, adding an external user within my environment is not possible. Adding them into my Active Directory is not possible. So I get frustrated. I'm blocked. I can't do my work anymore. So what do? I download the file, I attach it into an email, and then send it off. Right? Now you can say, okay, I put DLP into place. I have put controls in terms of how large file attachments can be. But what does that mean for the end user? End user can't do his work again, right? Information gets blocked. So he gets frustrated one more time. So what does he do? He then goes down the street, and I've heard this happen many a times, goes to Starbucks, logs online, creates a Dropbox account, drags his file, puts it into the cloud storage, and sends it off. From an end user's perspective, he's happy, right? He's done his work. That's what we all pay him to do, right? But on our side, well, something's gone wrong, right? Compliance, you're no longer compliant. Information is now leaking in the clear. Personal identifying information, who knows where it's ended up. And by the way, and this is an interesting one, that public cloud service, who owns that information now? Right? The last time I checked, if I sign into my Gmail account to Dropbox, the personal user own it and Dropbox owns it. So if I leave, I take this information away now. You don't have any access to that. You don't have my login credentials. You don't have any control. You've lost control completely because your user is trying to do work. Quite fascinating, isn't it? This new world where mobile devices have come into play, cloud storage and file sharing and Dropbox and such are making it easier for someone to sign up for enterprise-like, functionality with no credit cards, but it's now created holes. It's created potential leaks. And the leaks are quite, the statistics around leaks are quite interesting. This is a number by Palo Alto Networks, one of our partners, and they did a survey analysis within their install base, and it found out that on average there are 13 file sharing and sync solutions used within an organization. I've done this talk so many times. I will not ask for a survey within all of you. How many you have? I'm just going to put that aside. But safe to say, it's probably happening right now. It's probably taking place. 76% of organizations send traffic to Dropbox. Now, sure, there may be videos, photos, personal stuff, but it's very easy, isn't it? Just drag and drop a file, put it into a folder, right-click, I share, and then people have access to that data. I want to take a pause here. Any questions? I know I've sort of been going very quickly through some of my content here today. No? Okay. So I want to take a shift here and talk a little bit about someone from the past. And this gentleman here is by the name of Alberti. Italian, 15th century. What he was famous for, and from my perspective, given I'm a crypto geek, is this little thing called the Alberti cipher. It's a disk, and you can go online, you can see it. It's quite cool, whereby, well, it's like a decoder ring. How many of you have seen like the cereal? Like you open up the box and there's a little decoder ring. You spin the thing, you create like I see a lot of people cheering and getting excited about it. That's what he invented, the Alberti cipher. But what was it for? I mean, that's all the crypto, that's all the security stuff. But what was it for, really? The fundamental need was, I need to be able to send information from point A to point B, and I want to protect the contents within it, wherever it goes. How do I ensure that no one along the way can intercept that data, can crack it open, and then be able to get access to it? And the principle goes all the way back to 14th, 15th century, even before that. You sort of follow the history of crypto and protection of information, Caesar cipher and all that. The need to be able to protect information wherever it goes hasn't really quite gone away. I would actually suggest that the need to do so has actually exacerbated because of such devices as our iPad, our personal iPads, such services as the cloud, where information now goes to even more places and to more people. So, how have we then tried to take Alberti's sort of principles, recognize that the world has changed today, and then apply it to how people need to work and be able to share and protect information? So, what we at WatchDox have done is actually applied user access, encryption, protection, being able to apply rights management onto files, right? So not only can you ensure that only the right people have access to the file as it's being shared, but also do you have the right to print, copy, paste information, be able to expire information, and apply those rules onto any endpoint, mobile devices, onto the desktop, through the web interface. So being able to also even do things like watermark, apply a dynamic watermark of the user's identity on that document, so that if someone were to take a picture of it and publish it out into the internet, you'd be able to quickly determine who actually leaked that information. Right? So we've actually built, again, taking Alberti's principles of protecting the information wherever it goes, and then applying that to ensure that your files are protected all the time, and then tracked. Who opened it, when did it take place, what kind of device. So building all of those principles into a solution whereby you can also allow sharing and collaboration to take place. Any questions up to this on this particular slide? Yes.
I'm a little curious about the dynamic watermark.
Sure.
Could you explain a little more about
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. So imagine, and this is my application right here. So my iOS app, this is actually my WatchDox app. As I'm viewing the document, I can actually apply on the diagonal my name, tim@watchdox.com, with my email address and Tim Choi across of it, or a customized message on it. So if I were to, for example, then take a picture of it and then load it up into the internet and say, hey, check out these slides. It's actually my identity being bound into that file wherever it goes. Did that help answer?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to visualize how when they take a picture, you can from that picture see it. I understand digitally.
Yeah, so we actually convert that file and then apply a watermark onto the document. Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, so this is like if you convert it to a PDF file. For us who have the ability to OCR it or make it where it recognizes the text and we can cut and paste it. I mean, how does that protect against that?
So the question is, we have, for example, controls, rights management controls into Office files and PDF files, whereby you can actually restrict someone from pulling content out of it.
Okay.
So the copy paste functions actually don't work.
Okay.
Yep.
So we could even save it as our own file and then change it, OCR it, and then
and then change it, convert it to PDF, and then apply controls on top of it. Yeah. In fact, the next slide sort of covers, the workflow of WatchDox. On the left, well, on your left, my right, file sources. So, files that are on PCs, for example, existing file store, SharePoint, Windows file systems. Where people work today, essentially. Right? Again, going back to the user, going back to where do they work, on mobile devices, etc. That information can be made available through a system like WatchDox. Right? And then controls such as encryption, controls such as policy like the watermarking or the expiration or things, or the copy paste and edit can be enforced into the document. And then when that file is shared to external users, made available onto mobile devices like the one that you see here on my iPad today, right? Those policies and controls are enforced no matter where it goes. Right? So you can imagine the workflow. Right? I'm a doctor, so I'm very affectionate about using the example of a doctor. I share it with some of you. My wife's a doctor, so I see her work every day. So so she wants to have an external assistant, like from a specialist. So she's a gastroenterologist, and maybe she needs to have someone from oncology to sort of provide input into this particular patient scenario. She could set up. She'd be able to have all the patient record information. Have a Dropbox-like interface, like a folder, drag information in, right-click, share. You sort of picture this, right? This is the Dropbox consumer-like experience that a lot of your end users desire. And then be able to share. Now, as that sharing takes place, encryption is applied, policy is applied, so that oncologists outside, when they have access to that file, have to authenticate, have to make sure they have the right permissions. Maybe I've set it such that they cannot print, so they won't be able to print the file. They won't be able to copy and paste the watermarks on the file. And so you can start to see the controls that can be applied to that on that workflow. And it aligns quite elegantly to my wife's sort of desire to share, this need to share information with someone outside.
So are the controls initiated at the point the document is created or at the point it's being shared, transferred?
Either way. So you can either set it when the file is being shared, you can configure it, or you can actually set policies to be able to say, if the file is being shared, here are the default policies to apply. Now, one of the other things that we've found is when you try to apply security, users tend to get frustrated because it's difficult to use. So what we've actually done as much as possible is to then add in productivity capabilities to sort of to make it, to create an incentive to use our solution. So one of the things that we've actually observed is the ability to, for example, apply annotations directly onto information. Being able to put sticky notes onto a file directly. So we're actually creating productivity tools. And what's interesting to observe is when security professionals now start to talk about productivity, is no longer about no, it's about yes, you can do stuff with this. And we've actually, what I've observed with many of our deployments is that it actually hides the security underneath all of the productivity capabilities that users love to have. right? Oh, you want Dropbox? Sure, here you go. And by the way, we're going to give you annotations. We're going to give you the ability to edit a file, on your mobile device. You can work on, you can safely work on your iPad. Oh, and by the way, yes, I've already protected the information. But that's a minor point. You don't have to care about that, right? That's all hidden underneath the covers. So it's quite fascinating. As a security vendor, I have two hats that I wear. There's the, oh my goodness, the boogeyman's out to get you. And then the, how do I help my end users be able to be productive and have a high adoption of a security solution because of productivity features built in. Just a quick snapshot. Wanted to share with you some of the organizations that we work with. Many of them in regulated industries. Many of them have intellectual property. Dave talked a lot about the scary world of the different attack vectors and PII, PHI, or financial information or intellectual property. But a lot of our customers deal with the issues that everyone deals with. How do I share information? How do I allow my users to be productive on mobile devices? Where are my files going to the outside world? And how do I make sure that that information is protected where it goes? So just to share with one example, the VA. This is actually a clipping directly from their website. So the VA actually utilizes our solution for their staff. And they actually specifically said about WatchDox. Requires a file collaboration tool comparable or equal to WatchDox. For them, it's all about mobility. How do I enable my mobile users to be able to get access to files wherever they are? Via SharePoint, on their desktop. How do I enable sharing to take place within the organization? This, again, the new world, right? In anticipation of this new world to come, how do I ensure that information that is sensitive residing on a iPad, unprotected personal iPad, is still controlled wherever it goes? The US Postal Service is another example. This is again their request for quote. This is the US Postal Service actually utilizes us in a number of ways. I won't go into the details. If you'd like to learn more, you can come grab me at the end of the session. Some of them are HR related, intellectual property related. There's actually quite a few interesting use cases there. So after we're done here, I'll be happy to share more. But I wanted to sort of dive a little deeper on one particular example, which is a healthcare organization. I know some of us are from healthcare, so hopefully this is relevant. This one's actually a publicly traded healthcare provider, anesthesiology, hospital, primary care, emergency medicine services. They have a need to be able to, again, allow the physicians to work on iPads, share information to external physicians, specialists, and allow actually their board of directors to actually get access to financial information and strategy related to the organization. And if you recall the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, on the left side, on the vertical, you have the needs, the sync and access, the security compliance, the annotations, the sharing, the editing, and creating. So it's actually, how the lives are changed is, first and foremost, I can work anywhere, I can work on any device. The security compliance, the continuous protection of information, the tracking, the audit. It's actually quite fascinating the amount of information and tracking we can provide, the audit trails. We can tell you who opened the file, when was it opened, what kind of device, what IP address, what did they do with the file, did they print it, did they, so you can imagine, so for example, with HIPAA, the need to have visibility into what happened, who had access, being able to print all of that information out. We can definitely provide that. Annotations I actually demonstrated today on today's session. Apply information, collaborate, sharing information, being able to have that Dropbox-like easy one tap, one click, share information out easily. And then editing and creating. We actually have built in editors into mobile devices. We actually have integrations into Office, into PDF. So it allows someone to continue working in a safe environment. Any questions on this particular use case? No? The other constituent that we obviously have to take care of is, well, you guys. the enterprise IT, enterprise security. This is a multinational insurance provider, 50,000 employees. Their desire was to be able to allow senior executives and board members and their insurance providers, their agents outside, they were affiliated, so consultants, so not really part of the organization, but consultants, to be able to share and get access to sensitive information wherever they are. And what did the IT need? First and foremost, deployment flexibility. Being able to choose between a cloud solution and on-prem based on their security and their operational needs. From my perspective, as WatchDox, we don't really care. We actually offer both because we want you to have the choice to choose between cloud or on-prem based on your sort of needs. So hence we offer both. The control and tracking, being able to have the compliance, the protection, the audit trails, the e-discovery, all of those critical security requirements when sensitive information, work-related information is being accessed. Integrations into SharePoint, integrations into file shares, being able to expose that and make that available externally to users or make that available on mobile devices. Mobile device management integration, being able to roll out mobile apps using an MDM solution, and then authentication, being able to plug into Active Directory, SAML-based authentication, identity management solutions, have that flexibility, right? Again, enterprise grade. Being able to understand these are the complex world of enterprises and being able to plug into each and every one of them. The next one is actually pretty fun, branding. We actually have taken our applications and actually have completely rebranded it for the organization. So the previous, now this insurance organization actually calls it MyDocs as opposed to WatchDocs. And they've completely rebranded it, put their company logo on it, and it's amazing when C-level CIOs, so all of a sudden see like their company logo on an app, on a little mobile app. The amount of joy people derive from that, it's quite fascinating. But branding, right? Because you have that affinity, you have that closeness, and sort of allow someone to continuously come back and use that application. And then building and extending, right? We all have applications, we all sort of have complex IT infrastructure. How do you plug into it? So we've actually been very deliberate by building web services APIs that a developer can actually plug into or transfer files into WatchDocs or apply security controls over an API call. So for those who are developers, myself included, this sort of is an exciting area where you can build more things, build more connectors, and build more applications using WatchDocs. I wanted to share these two slides because I believe that these are the end user hierarchy of needs and the enterprise IT hierarchy of needs. And it's, as someone who is looking at what are the requirements, what are the important things to take in consideration for a enterprise file sharing and sync. I want to stop Dropbox. This is getting out of control. I need to stop 13 file sharing and sync solutions. I need to have a mobile strategy around giving access to files from SharePoint, from desktop. What are the requirements that one should take into consideration? And I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts about what those that list is. So, a little early. There are a couple important key takeaways from my perspective, right? I think file sharing and sync is not going to go away. It's here to stay. It's here to stay because of a couple of reasons. The barrier to adopting it for your consumers, for your end users, is very low. Go online, download an app, click on something, you're signed up. Beauty is it's easy. The problem is everyone gets access to it, right? So it's not going to go away. So as such, what is the right alternative, right? Assuming that, and I believe this is such, the public consumer file sharings do not have the security controls that address PII, address PHI, address intellectual property, do not address data control, do not address data jurisdictions, for example, right? they're not enterprise. They're not able to give you the protections that you need. So with that in mind, well, now that you've embraced it, what are the considerations? What are the needs? What are the requirements? And again, I offer you today those two slides of those hierarchy of needs of both the end user and of the enterprise. Mobility is not going away. I walk around with my iPad all the time. I'd imagine many of you do too. And the ease of the light device, the ease of use, the continuous connectivity through the network, being able to get access to files, has huge productivity benefits for all of us. But what are, again, the security considerations? Are you encrypting those files on that device? What are the protections on them? Is there jailbreak detection? Do you still allow someone to get access to file if the device is jailbroken? Right? What are the keychains? How is that protected? Is that container and the application gone through penetration testing to ensure that it is a safe and trusted app? Right? And these are important aspects to a security practitioners to take into consideration. And I can, if you're happy, I'll be happy to share my list of security checklists that one should put a vendor through. But in addition to security, because again, we don't want to be a group of no, we want to be proactive to our end users. What are the productivity tools that one should also have in place for this mobile app? Annotations, editing, creation. Allow people to work. Right? Here's an opportunity, I believe, to be able to say, I'm going to offer you a secure mobile access solution, but I'm also going to give you productivity tools so you actually increase, again, that adoption rate of the product. And in securing the data. Right? Don't only take a mobile-only view. I don't believe that we live in a post-PC world. I think there's an element of post-PC, but the PC is still here. Right? People are still downloading files into their desktop. People are still emailing files wherever they go. Right? There are legacy ways that people are still going to work. My wife still uses a fax machine at the hospital. Fax should have been gone a long time ago, but it's still there because people have built in process. So, if you take an assumption that, generations of people are still going to work on PCs, you still need to have protections on that PC. And I postulate that the best way to ensure sort of the 360-degree continuous protection of data with a zero trust model is protect the file wherever it goes. Protect it if it's downloaded, protect it if it's moved onto the USB drive. You don't know where it's going to go. Right? So don't try to predict and try to put walls around things. If you're able to protect the file, protect the data, you essentially have a sense of assurance that, hey, on a mobile device, I'm covered. On a PC, I'm covered. On the web, I'm covered. So just to make all of our lives easier. So with that, I realize I just finished a little early today, but I want to thank you all for joining in my session today. I hope this was informative. I hope this was helpful. Again, my purpose in speaking today is to share with you, some of the use cases that we see around enterprise file sharing and sync, how people are utilizing it, how people are enabling productivity, but at the same time, very importantly, allow the security and protection of those files. And again, what are the important things that the end users and an enterprise IT organization needs? Excellent. Thank you. I love your questions today. Again, I hope this was informative and helpful. I am here. There are a bunch of cards, more information. If you'd like to learn more, love to get in touch with you. We have a booth out in the exhibition hall. We can give demos. There's a lot of content on the website. You can like to hear me, you can give demos. Lots of video recordings. So thank you. Thank you very much all.
Thank you.